Jai Shri Ram. This discussion, which is going on for quite some time about vegans and vegetarians in India, it has become rather troublesome for many people, and many people are taking different sides on this discussion. And vegetarians have their own objections, and vegans have their own objections. So we will try and understand a few things about both. Now, this vegan movement, which was formed, it was originally started sometime in England, long back. The original idea was to stop animals from suffering at the hands of human beings. And these vegans who specifically became vegan to prevent animals from suffering, they call themselves ethical vegans. So, but normally in this lot of people who are vegan, there are all kinds of individuals with different backgrounds, with different understandings, with different approaches. And the vegan movement slowly caught on because people wanted that the suffering should stop. So what most Indians and vegetarians should understand that this the main aim of this particular movement was to stop the suffering of animals. Now, the good part about the vegan movement was that they made the public aware of how animals are being maltreated. They highlighted the points which were used, especially in the Western world, of the meat industry and how they were maltreating animals and malpractices that were being done and all kinds of inhuman tortures which were being inflicted on the animals. So the vegans rightly say, and in the same way, the Vedas also say that this planet belongs to all beings, and all of us. It's not just the humans, but it's also the animals, the birds, the plants. All of it has life, and so therefore we must treat everything with respect, and especially the living beings, the animals, which is not happening in the modern world. So what happened is that during the time this meat industry was developing, there was a particular approach where the meat industry decided that the animals which are being grown, they should be only looked upon as a produce, and the aspect of them as being sentient beings or being living beings should be done away with. So they started putting small cages in which they were growing pigs, or they started having these animals in dairies where the cows were impregnated continuously and they lost their health, and they tried to engineer them so that the muscles grew for meat and the cows produced more milk and so on and so forth. So in reality, the fight from the side of the vegans is a fight of dharma, because they are trying their best to ensure that the animals don't suffer. But on the other side, in the vegan movement, there are many people who are quite crazy, and there are many people who are obstinate. So it is like a kind of fanaticism which can be observed sometimes when they try and sort of feel that every animal which is there should not be used in any way. It should be free completely. Now, for example, this argument is typically what the vegetarians in India will object to, and especially when vegans start interfering with the temple practices and say that milk should not be used. But let us discuss this little more reasonably. For example, when we go into on the Indian side, typically and traditionally what used to happen was that a person would have a cow in his home, and they would look after the cow, and they would take milk from the cow, and that milk, a little bit of that milk would be used for the worship also. And the cow was looked after. Even when it stopped giving milk, the cow was retained at home, and it was looked after till its old age, and it was treated like a family member. And then finally, when it died a natural death, then whatever other cows they had, they remained, and the cycle continued. But what is happening in modern India, unfortunately, is that a lot of people who have dairies, actually not a lot of people, but I should say most people, and lot of these people are Hindus. So it's not just lot, but majority of these people are Hindus. They have these dairies, and in the dairies they have these cows and buffaloes, and when the cow stops producing milk, they send it away themselves to the slaughterhouse. Now, for example, now recently in India there has been a ban on the slaughter of cow. So after this ban, what has happened is that people who had cows and calves and bulls, they left them free. So for example, near our ashram, we have a village. In that village, there are almost 200-250 animals which are roaming around free. Earlier, because there was no ban on the slaughter, these animals would have been caught and they would have been taken by the Muslims usually to the factories to these slaughterhouses and abattoirs, and they would have been killed. Of course, most of these abattoirs didn't have a license, that is a secondary issue, but they would have been butchered there. But the point is now that most of the Hindus who make a big discussion about the fact that the cow is our mother and the Ganga is our mother. Now I find that the Ganga is also dirty and they don't take the trouble to keep it clean. And in the same way, the cow is also maltreated. Cows are roaming on the street and they are eating plastic. And when you actually find the cow suffering, people do an operation. In certain cases, they have found 55 kgs of plastic in the cow's stomach. So all those Hindus who object, they should first of all themselves go out and look after the cows and make sure that the cows are looked after. On the other hand, the vegans who are insisting that no milk should be used, they should also understand that cows cannot live on their own in the wild. So when one wants to have these animals, they are domesticated animals, they cannot be left out free on their own, and nobody will look after these animals unless and until there is some benefit from them. So usually the cow, when it gives milk, it gives a lot of milk. It is enough for the calf and some is left over. And that little bit which is left over is used by humans also. And because it is a domesticated animal, it has a use. And of course, there's another point to it, that the cows which are there in the West and in India, they are different because the cow has got difference in protein and it has got a difference in the quality of milk also. So usually, traditionally, the Indians treated a cow as a family member and the milk and everything was used in the worship. So I think that there are, except for the cow alone, there are many other areas also, such as the fisheries, such as the dogs, such as the other creatures in this world, where one can focus instead of trying to prevent the worship of the deities by using milk. A lot of vegans are very tight, very particular about this, and they are very sort of charged about it, and they want to stop it. And on the other side, the Hindus who are there, because we have a history where a lot of interference is taking place in our customs. So the Hindus, on the other hand, have also become very charged because they feel that this is an interference in the customs. So this argument is not headed anywhere, because on one side the vegans want to push that no milk should be used, and on the other side the Hindus take it as a assault on their religion, on their spiritual tradition, and on their culture. So that part, I think there should be some sensitivity and understanding for the vegans also. But on the other side, the Hindus should also understand, because I find a lot of Indians and Hindus criticizing vegans. They don't understand that these are the people who are really trying to change, and they are giving a lot of possibilities to make people see that the movement, they should become vegetarians, and the movement towards becoming more human, to becoming more tolerant is what is veganism is all about. So that part is a major part, because in the Hindu spiritual tradition, ahimsa is a big deal for us. And so when we are talking about the spiritual part, that is where the ahimsa matters. And when we call a cow a mother, and then finally when we extract milk from her and then leave her, and then the butchers take them. So at that time, I think all those Hindus should also think that how can you call the cow your mother and let her out to be butchered? So it is one thing that you are educated and you are living in the cities and you are not able to look after cows, and then you don't really see what is happening in the real world out there, how the cows are maltreated by the dairy farmers and other people, and who are only looking for profits because they cannot sustain the cow. It takes about 2,500-3,000 rupees a month on an average in a village environment to have one cow. And suppose you have some 50 cows and only 10 of them are giving milk, and the Indian cow doesn't give so much milk. So the rest of the money it's a lot of money to look after the rest of the cows. So in reality, the farmers also have their own situation. So the vegetarians should also understand, and they should try and participate in maintaining gaushalas and in serving the cow in their own way, so that the cows are looked after well. And if they do need milk, then the milk should be taken from those cows which are looked after in a human way, because we have a very high regard for them. Most of us monks, sannyasis, we have gaushalas where we are looking after the cows and donating money and helping in whatever way we can to look after the cow. So that is my understanding of this whole topic. And I hope both the vegans and the Hindus will dwell on what I have said and think about it and try and take things in perspective. I will be very happy to hear your views and comments. So please make sure that if you have something to say, you can say it in the comments box. Thank you so much for your attention. Om Tat Sat.